what we have in mind for you is going over a few items in the CRM system, or the Customer Center system. So the ones we're going to focus on specifically today are the email blast system, the email campaign system, and Ecards. So to start off, we'll go on into the DeltaNet here, and we'll go over Ecards first. So let me take a look. All right, so as we go over the Ecards system, what we have are a few different kinds of cards we can deal with here. So there are Ecards where you can enter more or less information just depending on the nature of the Ecard. So we'll go over the easy ones first. First off, we can select from categories of Ecards up here. And if we go down to Holiday Ecards, these are the ones that are essentially completely done for you. All you do is pick your Ecard. So let's see, we missed Christmas in July by a little bit, but I'm going to pick Christmas anyway because I like it. And if we click on the Ecard template that we want to use, or the thumbnail we want to use, it'll bring us to our Ecard options screen. There are no options on this particular Ecard because it's a holiday Ecard. And if we click on Ecards Preview, this is what we've got. So you can see it automatically populates with all our information over here. And then anything you roll your mouse over that's outlined in this red dotted line is something that you can edit. So if we click here, change agent phone number, so we could change this to one of my favorite phone numbers. We'll save the phone number, and there we are. Now if we click on Send Ecard, one thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't immediately send the Ecard. It now lets us choose who we want to send it to. So we can go over to our group system and we can choose some groups that we have saved, or we can go over here and type in the email address of individual recipients. Now this is where the Ecards system differs a little bit from the other email systems in here. The Ecards system is the only one where you can just type in an email address and send to an individual based on that email address. So everyone else, if you try to enter the name of a customer to send the email to, it has to be a customer that's in your database. But with the Ecards system, you can type in email addresses for people that aren't anywhere in the system for you, or aren't saved to your Customer Center at all. So once you type in the email addresses you want, and I'll just go with mine. Make sure I don't have anybody selected, and send Ecard. Now before I click that, I'll also point out that you can modify the subject of the Ecard up here on the left, and then over here on the right, you could actually set a future date for the Ecard to be sent. One thing to keep in mind there is that, let's say for example, like you have your All Customers group, and you decide to send Ecards to your entire All Customers group. It will send based on the customers that are in your group today. So let's say if I set it to go out a week from now and I delete half of my customers from that group between today and that day, it'll still send to all of my customers. It won't send based on the contents of the group when it actually sends. So that sounds a little confusing, but that's what it does. So I'll pick for today, send to Ecard, and there we are. All right, so that's the simplest of the Ecards. Now if we go into more complicated ones, we could look at open houses, for example. So if we pick from our open house Ecards, and we'll just pick one of these at random. Now, this Ecard can be populated with listing information. So it gives us the ability to choose a listing here at the top. By default, it'll just show whatever your listings are. However, you can pull up any company listing up here also by typing in the address of the MLS number. So if I just type 123 up here, and there we are. It loads up other company listings, which in this case is all test listings anyway. But we can pick one of these. With Ohio State, we can't beat that. Set our open house date, set our open house start and end times, and if we want to add a message, please come to my open house, and preview our Ecard. And there we are. So now, because this Ecard has to do with listing information, we can modify the picture that's attached to the listing here. course, there's only one picture for this listing, but if there were more, we could pick a different one. And just like the other eCard, anything we roll over that's highlighted in that red dotted line is something that we can modify. So if you wanted to change the way the address was in here, you could click there and you could modify it. If you wanted to change the way that the date and time of the open house was laid out, you could click there and change it. And then once the eCard looks the way you want it to, we just click up here on Send eCard, and works the same way as the last one. And then lastly, or the last eCard type we'll go over, which will basically cover all types for us, is, well, there are new listing eCards, which are like the open house eCards, but you don't specify the open house date and time. You just specify listing information. So if we click on one of those and pick our listing, there's our message. So this is basically the same as the open house eCard, but you don't enter the open house information. And then lastly, we have just general eCards that aren't designed to go with any listing information, but unlike the holiday eCards, are more customizable. So we can just pick a generic eCard and click here, and now all of the information in the eCard we can enter manually. And there we are. And I'm pretty special. That worked out. So this just allows you to create a general eCard that you enter whatever text you want, and it's not listing specific, that you can just go ahead and send out to your customers. And then even once you fill out those fields in the previous screen, you can still go through here and modify them the same way you can with any other eCard. Alrighty. So we'll back out of this. So there's your overview of most of the eCard system. The last thing to point out with the eCard system is there's a history function here in the top right. So after you've sent out some eCards, you can click on View History, and this is all of the eCards you've ever sent out. And then if we click on the eCard, it tells us who we sent it to. Turns out I send most of my eCards to myself. I do a lot of testing in here. All right, so moving on from eCards, we'll go down to email blasts. All right, now here in the email blast system, there's a video we embed at the top of the page that you can watch through. It just gives you a basic overview of the system, how things work, and how you can use it. And as we scroll down, in the template section, first we have your drafts. So this is any eCard you've created in here that you've chosen to save as a draft, so you can go back, and the idea of a draft is that you start the eCard, and if you want to go back and finish it later on, you can go back here under your drafts, click on it, it'll bring it back up, and you can finish it. Next you have your templates. Templates differ from drafts in that you save them either way, but when you save one as a template, the idea is that that's essentially complete. I mean, that's the complete format of the email that you want to use from then on out for email blasts, but you just want to be able to go in and make minor modifications to it, or go in and change the text, so that all you have to do is, if you have a bunch of graphics, for example, you just go in and change the text every time you want to send it, and then you fire it off again. And then lastly, a fairly recently added feature is company templates. So if your company has created any templates that they wanted to be available to all of the agents in their company system-wide, then they can create those templates ahead of time and let us know, and then we can add those into this company template section so that they're selectable to all the agents. These templates are not modifiable to the agents, but you could click here, and then if you wanted to modify it, you could actually make a duplicate of one of these templates. So I don't have one here to show you, but if you clicked on it, it would bring up a menu that has the option to make a duplicate. And if you made a duplicate, it would save it up here in your templates. And once it's in your templates, you can modify it as you see fit and save it again, so that it saves your new version of that template that you've customized to be your own. So when it comes to actually sending the email blasts, if we go down here to the email blast section, we have our familiar WYSIWYG editor here, and this is the same editor we use on the pages for the most part. It's a slightly trimmed down version of the page editor and the paragraph about you section editor, just because it's designed for email, and email clients are a little more finicky with the extra stuff you can add to them versus what you can add to a regular web page. So that's why there aren't quite as many options. But first off, we'll go to the To field. When we click there, It brings up our autocompleter that allows us to select from our groups in the system. We'll see this is labeled groups. And then as we scroll down, here's our list of customers. If we type in a specific customer, it narrows our autocompleter list down to that customer. So if I want to send to just this one, and how about, who else do I have in here? Simon Phoenix, it's one of my favorites. And we'll also send it to a group. So now it'll send to everyone in that group, and it'll send to that user, and send to that user. We can also CC or BCC people on these emails. One thing worth noting is if you have multiple recipients in the to field here, it's still essentially BCCing to everyone in that field. So if you add a bunch of people to the to field, or if you add a whole group to the to field like this, the recipients aren't going to get an email that says it went to 50 different people if there are 50 people in that group. They'll get one that says it came just to them. So, and everyone gets them that way. And then if we go down to subject, we can just add our email subject here. Check out my amazing email blast. And now we'll go down into our email content. This is a great email. I'm just very positive today. Great email blast. I'm going to add my favorite picture to it. And just so I'm not going too fast, we have our Insert Edit Image button up here, which is the same as the regular editor, just the button that looks like a tree. We'll click on that, and we'll click over here on the Browse button. Click on the picture we want to insert. Click the Insert button, and there it is. And we'll shrink it down a little so that people can see the whole thing. And there we go. So now, once you've configured the email blast and it looks the way you want it to look, we can go down here, we can preview it. So this is what it should look like in their email. We can save it as a template that we can go back and use later on. In fact, I'll just click Save as Template, and we'll call it the Poor Dog Template. Save. Successfully saved template, and there it is. Or let's say this wasn't complete, we wanted to come back and modify it later. We can save it as draft and go up to the top. And there it is, and you can see the draft saves just based on the subject line I used in the email, whereas the template actually lets me name a template because, you know, they're designed so you can go back later and modify them in different ways. So we'll go down here, refresh. Just reloads the editor so that we can start from scratch, and since we saved them, we can go back here, and let's say we didn't finish this one, so we wanted to finish it up. We'll click on Use, and there we are. And there's our draft back up, and the draft also keeps our recipients, whereas the template does not. So if we go back up here and use our template, you can see the recipients aren't here, because the idea is if you're loading a template up, you're going to modify it and send it to a new set of recipients. Whereas if you're modifying a draft, that means that you're just updating something you haven't completed yet. We click on the New button, that would load us up just a fresh new editor, and if we click on Send, it'll send out to all the recipients we have set up here in the To field, which right now is nobody, unless we click on Draft, and there we go. All right, then you have a history system down here at the bottom where you can see all the emails you sent out using the email blast system before. You can preview each one individually. If you click on Use, it loads up your email in the email editor. If you click on Resend, it loads it up with the recipient up here so that you can, so basically it doesn't resend it immediately. The only difference is if you click on Use, it loads it up here with no recipients. If you click Resend, it loads it up here with the same recipients you originally sent it to. As you can see, I send most of my test e-cards just to myself. All right. Now the last thing to point out here on Email Blast is if we look at this top section again, once you have some drafts saved or some templates saved, you get some additional options up here. So if we take our draft and just click on it, we can now edit it, which would basically be the same as clicking on Use and clicking on Save again. We can duplicate it if we wanted to start with this one but make a new one that was essentially the same, or we can delete it and that would remove it from this section completely. If you want to delete, Yes, and it didn't delete unless it did. Ah, there we go. Just had to refresh the page and now it's gone. And you get the same options down here under your templates. Under company templates, it'll be very similar, only you won't be able to edit or delete. You'll just be able to duplicate. And it won't say duplicate, it'll say duplicate to your templates. All right, so from here, we will check out the email campaign system. So back up to customers and down to email campaigns. Now on the email campaigns page, first we have our customer groups interface, which is the same one that's on your customer center page. From here, you can add or remove groups, you can modify them. It's just an easy place that you can quickly make changes to your customer groups when you're already on your email campaigns page. Now, default actions is what this page is going to do for you, basically. So right now, there's a group called Group, and that group is in my holidays campaign. So all this is telling me is that every time you add a customer to your group that's called Group, it'll also add it to your holiday system campaign. Same deal here, and that is the same with all these. So, and as we look down, we can see under my holidays campaign, we have a group named Group, a group named Special Super Group. So this is just telling me that if I add a customer to either one of those groups, it'll automatically add it to my system campaign. Now, as we run through our different campaigns here, there are a few that are going to be automatically built for you. There's the holidays campaign, which is a system campaign that we maintain. If you're on the upgrade package, there's also the My Customer for Life campaign, which we suggest that you add all of your customers to. It's just sends out kind of a touching base email with a little bit of useful information to each one of your customers that are in this campaign, roughly once a month. It sends out some holiday ones also. The only thing I would suggest between these two is if you have customers in both of them, there are a couple of emails that overlap, so you'd want to look closely at these to make sure you're not going to send the same email twice. For example, March 10th, the holiday campaign sends out an email that says, don't forget to bring your clocks forward. And if we look at our Customer for Life campaign, on March 11th, it has an email that says, remember to change your clocks. Now those dates will change automatically next year because we update them each year. But basically, you don't want to have that active in both campaigns if you're using both campaigns. All right, so as we go down, I have a few custom campaigns I've added here also. But to start off, we'll go ahead and create a new campaign. So to do that, we'll click our Add New Campaign button. I'll just call it Test Campaign for now. Let's save. There we are. It sorts all your campaigns alphabetically, so we'll scroll down to Test Campaign. And we have now an Add New Email button, or Manage Customers Groups button, or a Delete Campaign button. So the first thing you'll want to do with a new campaign is add a new email to it. And just to make sure we're covering everything, we'll go down here again. Add new email / action. An action would be adding something to your to-do. It'll send you a reminder on the date that you set, or the interval that you set. If we click on email, that creates the new drip email. By default, it'll be on interval. If it's set on day 1, that means it'll send to the customer the first day it goes out. If it's set on day 30, it'll send the 30th day after they've been added to the campaign. If we click on date, we can set a specific date for it, or we can set, say, every year, every month, and we'll say the first day. So now it'll send on the first of every month, and it'll keep doing that every year. Or we could say just this year, the first of every month. So you can use any combination there that fits what your email is going to do. Under subject, we'll put our drip email. And then we fill out the email content with the same editor that's used in the email blast system. And we're set to go. So from there, you can save draft, just like the email blast system. Saving draft would mean that it's incomplete, and the system will know that it's incomplete. So if we save draft, we'll see that the system says it's not going to send yet. Publish draft to enable sending. So we'll go back in here and edit draft. And this time we'll publish it. And now the email should be ready to go out. So if we scroll down here to the bottom, there we are. So now it's drip email. It's going to send in 2016 every month on the 1st. The subject is drip email. If we click view, this is what the email is going to look like. And if we click send, it doesn't actually send the email. All it does is send a preview of the email. So this is if you want to see what it looks like in your own email client. There's no way to force an email campaign or a campaign email to send out right away, because they're all designed to send out automatically on date. So if you wanted to create one and have it send out as soon as possible, your best bet is to just create the email and then set the date for tomorrow so that it'll send out on the next day. All right, if we click the Actions button, we can enable or disable this email individually. So if we wanted to have the whole campaign enabled, but only disable individual emails within the campaign, that's how we would do it. Or because we created this one, we can click Remove and remove this email altogether. Now, a better example for that would be if we go up to this campaign that has a lot of emails in it. So we see that we had that do not forget to spring your clocks forward email. If we want all of our customers to get the one from the My Customer for Life campaign and not use the holiday campaign, we'll click on Actions, Disable. And now every email in this campaign will go out because we have it enabled and we have customers in it, but it's not going to send that email. But it's still going to send the one from the My Customer for Life campaign down here. Remember to change your clocks. So that's how we would enable or disable them individually. So lastly, once you have your email configured and ready to go and you know what you want to do with it, we can click on Manage Customers Groups. We can check the first radio button here that says Add All New or Existing Customers. So as you add customers to your Customer Center, it'll automatically place them in this campaign so that they'll automatically start getting the emails. Or we can say Add Selected Contacts and or groups to this campaign. By doing that, it opens up our interface here where we can either put a check mark next to the groups we want to be in the campaign, or we can put check marks next to individual customers we want to be in the campaign. And this works the same way as the group system. Anything that's checked is in the campaign, anything that's not checked is not. And if you have a lot of customers or a lot of groups here and you want to filter them down, we can just start to type a name. It'll update the list accordingly, and there they are. Once we have it set up the way we want, you just click on Save. So right now we just have one customer in there. Oh, there, not one customer, the ones I had checked. And there we have it. And we go back and switch it, add all customers and save. And there we are. Now it sends to all customers and groups. And that is all there is to it. The one last thing I'll point out about the email blasts or the drip marketing campaign system or the email campaign system is when you set something to go out on first day, so you're setting it out to go on the day that the customer is added to the campaign, if you add a customer group to the campaign, the system's going to go based on the day the customer was added to that group, not the day the group was added to the campaign. So if you want an email to go out to everyone as soon as they're added to it, you'll want to create the campaign and then add an empty group to the campaign and then add your customers to the group, because it's going to go off the date they were entered into that group. So if the group's already in the campaign, it's going to be the same day one and it's going to send out to all those customers immediately. If you wanted to create a campaign and you didn't want it to go out to a group of customers right away, what you would do is add all the customers to the group and then maybe the next day add them to the campaign. Their first day will have been the day they were added to the group, which was before they were added to the campaign, so the email won't go to them. I know how confusing that sounds, but if you have any questions about it, feel free to email us, because that's what we're here for, or give us a call. All right, so that pretty much covers our basic CRM system. That covers the email blasts, email campaigns, and e-cards. As always, if you have any suggestions for videos, feel free to comment on this video or any of our others. If you have any questions or concerns, or there's any more information you need, just feel free to give us a call or send us an email at support@deltagroup.com. So thanks for joining me this week.